It was February 2021 in Ikeja, Lagos. The harmattan had begun to fade, but its dust still clung to window frames and prayer mats. I had been living alone since my husband died, 7 quiet years marked by morning tea, the market calls, and the rhythm of radio news. My son, Tunde, came home from Maryland with his new wife, Lauren. She was polite, efficient, and always a little distant, like someone touring a museum. She said she wanted to help organize my life. At first, I let her. But when she began suggesting assisted living, I knew she did not understand where she stood. In Nigeria, we do not abandon our elders, we guard them. It is not tradition, it is covenant. So I smiled, listened, and waited. Because silence, if you know how to use it, can build its own kind of thunder. What happened over the next 6 months would teach her that paper, when signed by the right hand, speaks louder than ambition. And by the time she realized what I had done, it was already too late. Let me tell you how a woman who had survived military coups, currency devaluations, and 7 years of widowhood defended her home against someone who thought poverty was the same as powerlessness. The morning they arrived, the sky was pale and heavy with dust. It was a Saturday, the 27th of February, and the harmattan was in its final days. Adesuwa Obathemi stood at her kitchen window, watching the street below. She had been awake since 5 in the morning, as was her custom, and had already swept the compound twice, washed the windows, and placed fresh flowers, red hibiscus from the garden, in a clay vase on the dining table. The house smelled of coconut oil and Omo detergent, the familiar scent of Saturday mornings that had persisted for decades. A yellow taxi pulled up at exactly 9:30, its paint faded and scratched, one headlight held in place with wire. The doors opened and 2 figures emerged, blinking in the bright morning light. Her son, Tunde, stepped out first, tall and careful, his shoulders slightly hunched as if apologizing for taking up space. He wore khaki pants and a polo shirt, both rumpled from travel. Beside him was Lauren, her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, sunglasses reflecting the morning light. She wore cream-colored linen pants and a white blouse, already wrinkled from the long flight from Baltimore to Lagos. They looked, Adesuwa thought, like tourists preparing for a safari. The taxi driver opened the trunk, and Tunde began pulling out suitcases. 2 large ones, both black with silver zippers, tagged with airline codes, BWI to Los. Lauren stood to the side, her hands on her hips, surveying the street. Her gaze moved from the cracked pavement to the modest houses, from the children playing football between parked cars to the woman selling oranges from a wooden cart. Adesuwa saw her daughter-in-law's expression, polite interest masking discomfort, the look of someone who has arrived somewhere they had only seen in photographs. Adesuwa dried her hands on a towel and walked to the front door. She had dressed carefully that morning, a simple wrapper and blouse in deep blue, her hair wrapped in a matching headscarf, small gold earrings her husband had given her on their 10th anniversary. She wanted to look dignified, not desperate for approval. She opened the door just as Tunde reached the gate. He saw her and his face brightened, that familiar smile that had been the same since he was 5 years old. "Mama," he called. She walked to meet him, her steps measured, her back straight. When she reached him, he dropped the suitcase handles and wrapped his arms around her. She felt how thin he had become, how his shirt smelled of American laundry detergent, something floral and chemical, nothing like the Omo and sun-drying she used. She held him for a long moment, then stepped back to look at him properly. "You have lost weight," she said. "Work has been busy," he replied. "Too busy to eat." He laughed. "You know how it is." But she did not know how it was. She had not been to America in 15 years, not since his graduation from Howard University, and even then, she had stayed only 10 days. America, to her, remained a place of abstraction, cold buildings, fast cars, people always rushing somewhere. Lauren approached, pulling a small carry-on bag. Up close, she was prettier than in the photographs Tunde had emailed. She had clear skin, light brown eyes, and a professional smile that looked practiced. "Mom," Lauren said, extending her hand. Adesuwa took it. The handshake was firm, efficient, the kind business people exchanged. "Welcome," Adesawa said. "Thank you so much for having us. We are so excited to be here." "How was your journey?" "Long," Lauren said. "But good. We had a layover in Amsterdam, so it was like 20 hours total." "You must be tired." "A little. But we brought energy drinks," Lauren smiled, but her eyes were already scanning the compound, the cracked concrete, the rusted gate, the paint peeling from the window frames. Adesawa saw her taking inventory, making mental notes. They brought the suitcases inside. The living room was modest but clean. A worn sofa with embroidered cushions, a coffee table made of dark wood, a ceiling fan turning slowly above them. On the walls were framed photographs, Adesawa and her late husband on their wedding day, Tunde as a baby, family gatherings from years past. A small television sat in the corner, the kind with a curved screen that had been popular in the 1990s. The floor was terrazzo, polished to a dull shine, cool under bare feet. Lauren looked around, and Adesawa saw her absorbing everything. The assessment was quick but thorough. This was not a wealthy home, not modern, not equipped with the conveniences Lauren was accustomed to. "It's very authentic," Lauren said finally. "Authentic." The word hung in the air like a judgment disguised as a compliment. Adesawa nodded politely. "Please sit. I will bring water." She went to the kitchen and poured water from the clay pot in the corner, cool, filtered water that tasted of earth and memory. She brought 2 glasses on a tray and set them on the coffee table. Tunde drank his in one long gulp. Lauren sipped cautiously, as if testing for impurities. "Where's the bathroom?" Lauren asked. "Upstairs, second door on the left," Adesawa said. Lauren excused herself. Adesawa listened to her footsteps on the stairs, quick, purposeful, the sound of someone cataloging their surroundings. She turned to Tunde. "How long will you stay?" 3 weeks, maybe 4. I am working remotely, so I have flexibility. And her? She took vacation time. She has been planning this trip for months. Planning what exactly? Tunde hesitated. To get to know you. To see where I grew up. She wants to understand my roots. Adesawa nodded slowly. But there was something in his tone, a slight defensiveness, that made her uneasy. She had not survived 58 years by ignoring instinct. Lauren returned, wiping her hands on a small towel she had brought from her bag. "The bathroom is lovely," she said. "Very clean." "Thank you. Do you have Wi-Fi?" Adesawa blinked. "Wi-Fi? Internet? For work?" Yes. The password is written on the router. It is in the corner." Lauren pulled out her phone and connected immediately. Her fingers moved rapidly across the screen, checking emails, messages, updates. Tunde did the same. For several minutes, they sat in silence, absorbed in their devices. Adesawa watched them, these 2 people who had traveled 7,000 kilometers to be here, yet seemed unable to be fully present. Finally, she said, "Let me show you your room." They followed her upstairs. The guest room was at the end of the hall, painted a soft yellow, with a double bed covered in a white bedspread, a wooden wardrobe, and a small desk by the window. The window looked out over the garden, where the guava tree stood, its branches thick with leaves. "This is nice," Tunde said. Lauren set her carry-on on the desk. "Very nice," but Adesawa heard the reservation in her voice. The room was clean, yes, but it was not modern. There was no air conditioning, only a standing fan. No flat-screen television, only a small radio on the nightstand. No ensuite bathroom, only the shared one down the hall. "I will let you settle in," Adesawa said. "Lunch will be ready at 1 o'clock. "Thank you, Mom," Lauren said. Adesawa descended the stairs and returned to the kitchen. She stood by the window, looking out at the street. The woman selling oranges was packing up, loading her cart. Children were being called home for lunch. The call to prayer echoed from the mosque 3 streets away, the sound woven into the fabric of the neighborhood. She thought about the word authentic, about what it implied. That this was a place to visit, to observe, but not to belong to. That it was quaint, perhaps interesting, but ultimately temporary. She turned back to the stove and began preparing lunch: jollof rice, fried plantain, and chicken. She cooked slowly, methodically, letting her hands remember the rhythm of chopping and stirring. Cooking had always been a meditation for her, a way to think without being interrupted by thought. And she was thinking now about Lauren, about the way she had surveyed the house, about the quick assessment in her eyes. She was thinking about Tunde, about how he had changed since moving to America, his voice softer, his posture more uncertain, his loyalty divided. By the time lunch was ready, she had already begun to prepare herself. Not for confrontation, but for observation. She would watch. She would listen. She would wait. Because waiting, she had learned, was its own form of power. They ate lunch together at the dining table. The food was arranged on serving platters, mounded rice bright with tomatoes and peppers, golden plantain slices, chicken legs glistening with spices. Tunde ate eagerly, making small sounds of satisfaction. Lauren ate carefully, cutting everything into small, precise pieces, chewing slowly as if analyzing each flavor. "This is really good," Lauren said. "Thank you," Adesewa replied. "Do you cook like this every day?" "Most days." "That must take a lot of time." "I have time." Lauren nodded. "Still, it must be exhausting. Have you thought about meal delivery services?" Adesewa set down her fork. "Meal delivery?" "Yes. In the States, we use these apps where you can order prepared meals. Healthy, balanced, delivered right to your door. It saves so much time." "I enjoy cooking." "Of course. I just mean for the days when you are tired. Or when you do not feel like it." Adesewa picked up her fork again. "I always feel like it." Tunde cleared his throat. "Mama's cooking is the best. I have been dreaming about this jollof rice for months." Lauren smiled at him, then at Adesewa. "I am sure. I just like to offer suggestions. That is what I do for a living, optimize processes." "What kind of work do you do?" Adesewa asked, though she already knew. Tunde had told her in emails that Lauren worked in administrative management for a healthcare company. "I am an operations manager," Lauren said. "I oversee workflows, reduce inefficiencies, and streamline systems. Basically, I make things run better." "That sounds important." "It is. A lot of people do not realize how much waste there is in daily operations. Small changes can have huge impacts." Adesewa nodded. She understood now. Lauren saw life as a series of processes to be optimized. And Adesewa, living alone in a house with a cracked gate and a 20-year-old television, represented inefficiency. After lunch, Lauren insisted on helping with the dishes. Adesewa tried to decline, but Lauren was already carrying plates to the kitchen, rolling up her sleeves. She washed with military precision, scrubbing each dish thoroughly, stacking them in the drying rack with geometric exactness. "You have a nice garden," Lauren said, looking out the window. "Thank you." "That tree, what kind is it?" "Guava. It is huge. My husband planted it in 1985. "From cutting." Lauren wiped a plate. "It must be worth something. Old trees like that are valuable." Adesewa paused in her drying. "Valuable how?" "I mean, if you ever wanted to sell the property, mature trees increase the land value. Buyers love that kind of thing." "I am not selling." "Oh, I know. I am just saying. This is prime real estate. You are close to the main road, good neighborhood, large lot. You could get a fortune for it." Adesewa placed the dried plate in the cupboard. "Fortune is a strange word. What is fortunate about selling your home?" Lauren laughed lightly. "Well, you could use the money for anything. Travel, comfort, security. I have those things." "I just mean you have options." Lauren handed her another plate. "Options are good." Adesewa dried the plate in silence. Options. Another word that sounded generous, but carried assumptions that she needed rescuing, that her current life was insufficient, that change was inherently improvement. That evening, after dinner, Tunde and Lauren sat in the living room with their laptops. Adesewa sat in her chair by the window, reading the newspaper by the light of a standing lamp. The ceiling fan turned slowly above them. The generator hummed outside, a constant background noise that marked the evening hours. Lauren typed rapidly, pausing occasionally to sip from a bottle of water she had brought from America. Tunde scrolled through spreadsheets, his face illuminated by the screen. Neither of them spoke to each other or to Adesewa. They existed in parallel, connected only by their silence. Adesawa watched them over the top of her newspaper. She thought about marriage, about what it looked like when two people had become accustomed to existing separately even while sitting side by side. She thought about her own marriage, how she and Emeka had talked every evening, sharing the small details of their days, his work at the ministry, her shifts at the hospital, Tunde's progress in school. They had been partners, collaborators in the project of building a life. These two seemed more like colleagues. At 9 o'clock, Lauren stood and stretched. I think I will turn in. Tunde looked up. Already? I am exhausted. The time difference is killing me. All right. I will be up soon. Lauren said goodnight to Adesawa and climbed the stairs. Adesawa heard the bedroom door close, the sound of water running in the bathroom, then silence. Tunde continued working for another hour. Finally, he closed his laptop and rubbed his eyes. Long day, he said. Yes, Adesawa replied. He stood, hesitated, then sat down in the chair across from her. Mama, I want you to know that Lauren really does care. She can be a bit direct, but her heart is in the right place. I am sure it is. She just likes to help. I understand. Tunde looked down at his hands. She has been talking about this trip for months. She wanted everything to be perfect. Perfect for whom? He looked up. What do you mean? I mean, why does she want things to be perfect? Because she cares about you. Adesawa folded her newspaper. Tunde, I am your mother. You do not need to protect me from uncomfortable truths. I am not. She does not know me. She has been here for 12 hours. Yet, she already has suggestions about my cooking, my garden, and my property. Why? Tunde shifted in his chair. She is just like that. She sees things and wants to improve them. But I did not ask for improvement. I know. But she thinks he stopped. What does she think? He sighed. She thinks you are alone and vulnerable. That you might need help. Help with what? With managing things. The house, the finances, the future. Adesawa felt something cold settle in her chest. I see. She means well. You said that already. Tunde looked miserable. Mama, please. Do not make this harder than it is. We just want to make sure you are okay. I am okay. But for how long? You are getting older. You are here alone. What if something happens? Then something happens. I will handle it. But you should not have to handle it alone. Adesawa leaned forward. Tunde, I have been alone for 7 years. I have managed. I have survived. I do not need rescue. No one said rescue. Then what word would you use? He did not answer. Adesawa stood. I am going to bed. Good night. Mama. Good night, Tunde. She climbed the stairs slowly, her hand on the railing. Her knees ached slightly, the familiar pain of age and humidity. She went to her room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of her bed. The room was dark except for the streetlight filtering through the curtains. She could hear Tunde moving around downstairs, the sound of the front door being locked, the generator being switched off. She thought about his words. You are getting older. As if age were a disease, as if it required intervention. She thought about Lauren's comments. Options. Efficiency. Optimization. She opened the drawer of her nightstand and pulled out her metal box, the one labeled Documents of Life. Inside were papers brown with age, her marriage certificate, Tunde's birth certificate, her husband's death certificate, and beneath them all, a single yellowed receipt from the Lagos State Land Registry. The receipt was dated 14 March 1984. It recorded the payment of 40 naira for stamp duty on parcel number 00347/1984, located in Ikeja, Lagos State. The purchaser was listed as Emeka Obafemi. His signature was there in faded blue ink, alongside the stamp of the registry and the signature of a clerk named J. A. Adeoye. Adesawa held the paper carefully, feeling its fragility, its weight. 40 naira. In 1984, that had been a significant sum. Emeka had saved for 2 years to buy this land, working double shifts at the ministry, taking on extra projects. They had planned the house together, drawn sketches on the back of old newspapers, argued about where to place the kitchen and how many bedrooms to build. The house had been completed in 1987. They had moved in during the rainy season, carrying their belongings through mud and puddles, laughing at the absurdity of it all. Tunde had been 5 years old, running through the empty rooms, his voice echoing off the fresh paint. This house was not property. It was memory made solid. She placed the receipt back in the box, locked it, and returned it to the drawer. Then she knelt beside her bed, folded her hands, and prayed. Not for protection, but for wisdom. Not for deliverance, but for discernment. Because she had a feeling that the battle had already begun, even if the first shot had not yet been fired. The next morning was Sunday. Adesua woke at her usual time, 5 o'clock, and dressed for church. She wore a white lace blouse and a purple wrapper, matching headscarf, her good shoes that she only wore for special occasions. She made tea, ate a piece of bread with butter, and left the house at 6:30. The church was a 15-minute walk, the Redeemed Christian Church of God, a modest building with a corrugated metal roof and wooden benches. The service began at 7, and she liked to arrive early, to sit in her usual spot near the back, to have time for private prayer before the congregation filled the space. She stayed for the full service, 3 hours of singing, preaching, testimonies. Pastor Adebayo spoke about trusting in God's provision, about not leaning on human understanding. The message felt personal, as if spoken directly to her. She closed her eyes and listened, letting the words wash over her. When she returned home at 11, she found Tunde and Lauren awake and dressed. Lauren was on her laptop at the dining table. Tunde was drinking coffee in the kitchen. "Good morning," Adesua said. "Good morning, Mama. Where did you go?" "Church." "Oh, we did not know. I go every Sunday." Lauren looked up from her screen. "That is lovely. Is it far?" "No. 15 minutes walking." "You walk?" "Yes." Lauren exchanged a glance with Tunde. "In this heat?" "I am used to it." "Still, that seems difficult. Have you thought about getting a car? Or maybe using ride-sharing apps?" Adesua set down her purse. "I do not drive anymore." "Why not?" "I sold my car after my husband died. I did not need it. But for convenience. I am convenient enough." Lauren smiled. "Of course. I just worry about safety. Walking alone. I have been walking these streets for 38 years. I know every corner, every neighbor. I am safe. I am sure you are. I am just thinking long term. As you get older, walking will become harder." Adesua looked at her daughter-in-law. "Lauren, I appreciate your concern. But I am not asking for solutions to problems I do not have." Lauren's smile tightened. "I understand. I am just trying to help." "I know. But help is only helpful when it is requested." The room went quiet. Tunde coughed. "Mama, are you hungry? We can make breakfast." "I already ate." "Oh, okay." Adesua went upstairs to change. She removed her church clothes and put on a simple house dress, cotton and cool. She sat on her bed and listened to the sounds below: muted conversation, the clink of dishes, Lauren's voice rising slightly in frustration. She could not hear the words, but she could hear the tone. She thought about boundaries, about how they were established not through aggression, but through quiet, consistent assertion. She thought about how colonizers had always arrived with offers of help, of improvement, of progress. And how accepting that help always came with a cost. She would not make that mistake. Over the next week, patterns emerged. Lauren woke early, made coffee in a French press she had brought from America, and worked at the dining table for several hours. She attended virtual meetings, her voice professional and clipped, discussing budgets and timelines and deliverables. Tunde worked from the guest room, door closed, his presence marked only by the occasional sound of his voice on conference calls. Adesua maintained her routines: morning tea, market visits, cooking, evening prayers. But she began to notice changes, small at first, then increasingly intrusive. Lauren rearranged the kitchen. She moved the spice jars from the counter to the cupboard, grouping them alphabetically rather than by frequency of use. She replaced the cloth napkins with paper ones, saying they were more sanitary. She ordered a water filter online and had it delivered within 3 days, installing it herself with a screwdriver from her travel toolkit. "This will make the water safer," she explained. The water is already safe, Adesawa said. I know. This just adds an extra layer of protection. Adesawa did not argue. She let Lauren install the filter, then continued drinking from the clay pot as she always had. Lauren also began managing the mail. Every morning, she stood by the gate, waiting for the postman. When letters arrived, she brought them inside and sorted them on the dining table, bills in one pile, advertisements in another, official documents in a third. She opened some of them, explaining that she was helping organize. These are my letters, Adesawa said one afternoon, finding an electricity bill already opened. I know. I was just checking the due date. I know when it is due. I am sure you do. I was creating a calendar system so nothing gets missed. Nothing has ever been missed. Lauren smiled patiently. Prevention is better than cure, right? Adesawa took the bill and placed it in her purse. I will pay it myself. Of course. I am just trying to help. That phrase, I am just trying to help, was becoming a refrain, a justification for every intrusion. By the end of the first week, Adesawa realized that the mail was not just being sorted. It was being screened. Certain letters disappeared before she could see them. One afternoon, she went to the gate herself when the postman arrived and asked if there had been anything else. Yes, Ma, he said. Property tax notice. I gave it to the young woman yesterday. Thank you. She went back inside and searched the dining table, the kitchen counter, the recycling bin. She did not find the notice. Finally, she asked Lauren directly. Did a property tax letter arrive yesterday? Lauren looked up from her laptop. Property tax? I do not think so. The postman said he delivered it. Oh, maybe I put it with other documents. Let me check. She rummaged through a folder on the table and pulled out an envelope. Here it is. Sorry, I thought it was just a duplicate. Adesawa took the envelope. It had been opened. Why did you open this? I wanted to see what it was. I thought it might be important. It is important. That is why it is addressed to me. Lauren's expression hardened slightly. I was just trying to be helpful. You get so much mail, I thought organizing it would make things easier. Easier for whom? For you. Adesawa held the envelope. Please do not open my mail again. Fine. Adesawa went to her room and examined the letter. It was a standard tax notice, confirming that her property taxes for the year had been paid. But someone had highlighted certain sections in yellow, the parcel number, the owner's name, the assessed value. She folded the letter carefully and placed it in her metal box. That evening, she sat on the veranda and thought about patterns. Observing. Organizing. Documenting. These were not random acts of helpfulness. They were reconnaissance. Lauren was gathering information. The question was, for what purpose? By the second week, Lauren had moved beyond observation to action. She hired painters to repaint the kitchen. Adesawa came home from the market one afternoon to find two young men in spattered overalls covering the walls with fresh white paint. The kitchen had been yellow for 20 years, a soft shade that her husband had chosen because it reminded him of morning light. What is happening? Adesawa asked. Lauren appeared in the doorway, looking pleased. Surprise. I thought a fresh coat of paint would brighten things up. You did not ask me. I wanted it to be a surprise. I do not like surprises. Lauren's smile faltered. I thought you would be happy. You are painting over my husband's choice. It is just paint. We can change it back if you want. Adesawa set down her shopping bags. She looked at the walls, half covered now, the yellow disappearing under layers of sterile white. She felt something break inside her, not anger, but grief. This was erased. This was colonization by kindness. Stop, she said quietly. The painters looked at her, then at Lauren. Mom, it is already half done, Lauren said. Stop now. Lauren's expression shifted from confusion to frustration. This is ridiculous. It is just paint. It looks so much better now. It is my kitchen. But you never use it anyway. You could use a modern kitchen with better lighting, better organization. I use this kitchen every single day. Lauren threw up her hands. Fine. Whatever. I was just trying to do something nice. She turned and left. The painters stood uncertainly, brushes in hand. Finish this wall, Adesawa said in Yoruba. Then stop. Leave the rest. Yes, Ma, they replied. She went upstairs and closed the door to her room. She sat on the bed, her hands shaking slightly. Not from fear, but from restrained fury. She had been patient. She had been polite. But politeness, she realized, was being interpreted as permission. That night, Tunde knocked on her door. Mama, can we talk? She opened the door. He looked uncomfortable, his hands in his pockets. Lauren is upset, he said. I know. She was just trying to help. By destroying my kitchen. It is just paint, Mama. It is not just paint. It is my home. And she did not ask. Tunde sighed. I know. But she spent her own money on it. She hired the painters herself. She was trying to do something nice for you. I did not ask her to. I know. But can you not appreciate the gesture? Adesewa looked at her son. Tunde, if someone breaks into your house and redecorates without your permission, do you thank them for the gesture? That is not the same thing. It is exactly the same thing. He ran his hand through his hair. She is my wife. Can you please just try to get along with her? I am trying. But she needs to respect my boundaries. She is just enthusiastic. She wants to help. Adesewa stepped closer. Tunde, whose side are you on? He looked away. There are no sides. Yes, there are. And you need to decide which one you are on. I am on both sides. You are both important to me. Then tell her to stop. Stop what? Stop rearranging my life. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I will talk to her. Thank you. He left. Adesewa closed the door and leaned against it. She felt tired, not physically but emotionally. This was not how she had imagined her son's visit, filled with tension, with unspoken resentments, with the quiet violence of good intentions. She went to bed early that night but could not sleep. She lay in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the house, Tunde and Lauren arguing in low voices, the creak of floorboards, the distant bark of dogs. She thought about her husband, about how he would have handled this. Emeka had been direct, sometimes blunt, but always clear. He would have told Lauren the first day, this is our home, not your project. Respect it or leave. But Adesewa was not Emeka. She was quieter, more patient, more willing to endure discomfort for the sake of peace. But patience, she was learning, could be mistaken for weakness. And weakness invited exploitation. The suggestion came on a Friday evening in late March, 3 weeks into their stay. Dinner had been quiet, jollof rice, fried plantain, grilled fish. The food was good, but the atmosphere was strained. Lauren ate methodically, cutting everything into small pieces. Tunde scrolled through his phone. Adesewa watched them both, feeling the distance between them widen with every passing meal. After dinner, Lauren cleared the plates and returned to the table with a glossy brochure. She placed it in front of Adesewa, her expression carefully neutral. I wanted to show you something, Lauren said. Adesewa looked down. The brochure was for a facility called Sunset Homes, located in Silver Spring, Maryland. The cover showed elderly people sitting in a manicured garden, their faces lit by soft afternoon sunlight. They were smiling, laughing, playing cards. The text read, Where dignity meets care. Active senior living at its finest. Adesewa opened the brochure. Inside were photographs of private rooms with hospital beds and flat-screen televisions, communal dining areas with white tablecloths, nurses in pastel scrubs pushing residents in wheelchairs. There were activity schedules, bingo on Tuesdays, movie nights on Fridays, group exercises on Wednesdays. What is this? Adesewa asked. A senior living facility, Lauren said. One of the best in Maryland. Why are you showing me this? Lauren leaned forward, her voice gentle, rehearsed. Mom, Tunde and I have been talking. We are worried about you living here alone. You're getting older, and this house is so big, and there is no one to help if something happens. Nothing is going to happen. But what if it does? What if you fall or get sick or need help? I have neighbors. Neighbors are not the same as trained medical staff. Adesewa closed the brochure. I am not going to America. Why not? Because I live here. But you could live there. With us nearby. We could visit all the time. You would have friends, activities, and care whenever you need it. Adesewa pushed the brochure back across the table. I do not need care. Lauren picked it up, persistent. Not now, maybe. But eventually you will. And by then it might be too late to make the transition. What transition? From independent living to assisted living. Adesawa felt her chest tighten. I am independent now. I know. But this house is too much for one person. The maintenance, the bills, the isolation. I am not isolated. You live alone. That is not the same thing. Lauren sighed, the sound of someone dealing with a difficult child. Mom, we just want what is best for you. What is best for me is staying in my home. But this is not sustainable long term. Why not? Because you are 58. In 10 years you will be 68. In 20 years you will be 78. You cannot live alone forever. Adesawa stood. I have no intention of living forever. But while I am alive, I will live here. She walked to the kitchen and began washing dishes. Her hands moved automatically, scrubbing, rinsing, stacking. She felt Lauren's presence behind her, could sense the frustration radiating from her like heat. Mom, please think about it, Lauren said. I have thought about it. The answer is no. But Lauren Adesawa turned to face her. I understand that you think you are helping. I understand that in America, this is what people do. They send their elders to facilities. They pay for care. They visit on weekends. But that is not how we do things here. Here, we stay with our people. We die in the homes we built. That is not stubbornness. That is dignity. Lauren's jaw tightened. Dignity is not living in a crumbling house with no support system. My house is not crumbling. The gate is rusted. The paint is peeling. The plumbing is old. This place needs serious work. Then I will do the work. With what money? The question hung in the air, sharp and cutting. Adesawa felt the insult of it, the implication that she was poor, helpless, unable to care for herself. I have money, she said quietly. From what? Your pension. Yes. Which is how much? Adesawa set down the plate she was washing. That is none of your business. It is my business if we are going to help you. I did not ask for your help. But you need it. Adesawa turned back to the sink. She scrubbed a pot with focused intensity, her knuckles white. She wanted to scream, to throw the pot, to tell this woman to leave her house and never return. But she did not. Because anger, expressed too soon, would give Lauren ammunition. It would confirm her belief that Adesawa was irrational, incapable, in need of management. So she remained silent. Lauren stood there for another moment, then left the kitchen. Adesawa heard her go upstairs and heard the bedroom door close firmly. Then she heard Tunde's voice, muffled but audible. What happened? Your mother is being impossible. What did you say to her? I showed her the brochure. I tried to explain that we are just worried about her future. And? She refuses to even consider it. Maybe she is not ready. She will never be ready. People like her do not see reason. They cling to the past, to tradition, to places that do not serve them anymore. People like her. Adesawa stopped washing dishes. She stood at the sink, her hands submerged in soapy water, and felt something harden inside her. Not anger now, but resolve. Lauren did not see her as a person. She saw her as a problem to be solved, an asset to be liquidated, an obstacle to be removed. And that, Adesawa realized, changed everything. That night, she could not sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the brochure, about the phrase asset transition that she had overheard Lauren mention on a phone call days earlier. She thought about the kitchen being repainted, about the mail being opened, about the property tax notice being highlighted. At 3 a.m, she got up, turned on the light, and opened her metal box. She took out the land registry receipt and read it again. 40 naira. 1984. Emeka Obafemi. The paper was fragile now, yellowed and creased, but the authority it carried was undiminished. This house was hers. Not legally transferable without her signature. Not sellable without her consent. Not to be taken. But Lauren did not know that. Lauren thought she was dealing with an elderly, isolated woman with no resources, no legal knowledge, no capacity to resist. She thought wrong. Adesawa placed the receipt back in the box and locked it. Then she sat at the edge of her bed, her hands folded in her lap, and made a decision. She would not confront. She would not argue. She would not give Lauren the satisfaction of a visible fight. Instead, she would watch. She would document. She would gather evidence. And when the time came, she would act. By Monday morning, her plan was clear. She needed to understand the full scope of Lauren's intentions. She needed to know what was being planned, what documents were being prepared, what steps were being taken. She needed proof. Over the next 2 weeks, she became invisible in her own home. She moved quietly, spoke little, and observed everything. Lauren, interpreting her silence as acquiescence, became less careful. She left her laptop open on the dining table, documents visible on the screen. She made phone calls in the garden, her voice carrying through the open windows. She printed papers and left them on the printer tray, assuming Adesewa would not notice. But Adesewa noticed everything. She noticed the spreadsheet on Lauren's laptop one afternoon, labeled Nigeria Property Assessment. The columns included current market value, estimated sale price, tax implications, proceeds distribution. The numbers were in US dollars, converted at current exchange rates. The estimated sale price was $450,000. She noticed the phone call Lauren made on a Tuesday morning, speaking to someone named Roger. Yes, the deed is registered in her name only. No, the son is not on the title. We will need her signature notarized. I am working on getting her to agree. If not, we will need to explore other options. She noticed the legal documents Lauren printed on a Thursday afternoon, templates for property transfer, instructions for international estate consolidation, guidelines for obtaining power of attorney. Each observation was catalogued in Adesewa's mind, filed away with the precision of someone who had spent 40 years as a nurse, trained to notice details, to see patterns, to diagnose based on evidence. By early April, she knew exactly what was happening. Lauren was planning to take her house. Not through violence, but through paperwork. Not through force, but through manipulation. The strategy was simple: convince Adesewa she was incapable, isolate her from support systems, present helpful solutions that involved transferring ownership, then complete the legal process before she understood what had happened. It was elegant, in a cold way. It would have worked on someone else. But it would not work on her. On the 9th of April, a Friday, Lauren asked to use the printer. She said she needed to print travel documents for their return flight, which was scheduled for early May. Adesewa agreed and went upstairs to fold laundry. 15 minutes later, she returned to the living room and found the printer silent, the room empty. 3 pages lay in the output tray, still warm from the machine. Adesewa picked them up. Her heart did not race. Her hands did not tremble. She felt only a cold clarity. The first page was a property transfer draft, typed on official-looking letterhead from a law firm in Bethesda, Maryland, Feldman and Associates, International Property Law. The document listed parcel number 00347/1984, located in Ikeja, Lagos State, Nigeria. It proposed transferring ownership from Adesewa Obafemi, current owner, to Tunde Obafemi and Lauren Peterson Obafemi, joint tenants with rights of survivorship. The transfer was justified under the heading Estate Consolidation for tax efficiency and future planning. The second page was a scanned copy of her title deed. The image was clear, professionally photographed, every detail visible: the registry stamp, the parcel number, the signatures. Someone had taken this photograph without her knowledge. The third page was a letter from Roger Feldman, attorney at law, dated April 5, 2021. It outlined the steps required for completing an international property transfer: obtain original title deed, secure notarized signature from current owner, acquire apostille certification from Nigerian authorities, file with Lagos State Land Registry, complete U.S. tax documentation. At the bottom of the page, in Lauren's handwriting, was a note, awaiting original signatures. Target filing date, mid-June 2021. Need to accelerate timeline. Adesewa stood in the silent room, the papers in her hands. She heard footsteps on the stairs and acted quickly. She took out her phone, opened the camera, and photographed each page, angling the phone to capture every word, every signature line, every detail of the letterhead. Then she placed the pages back in the printer tray exactly as she had found them, fanned slightly, the top page tilted to the left as it had been. Lauren appeared in the doorway. "Did it print?" "Yes," Adesawa said, her voice steady. 3 pages. "Perfect." Lauren walked to the printer, gathered the pages without looking at them, and tucked them into her planner. "Thanks, Mom." "You're welcome." Lauren returned to the dining table, opened her laptop, and resumed working. Adesawa went to the kitchen and began preparing lunch. She chopped vegetables with mechanical precision, her mind working through what she had just seen. The documents confirmed her suspicions. This was not casual interest. This was a plan, detailed and timeline-driven, to transfer legal ownership of her property to Lauren and Tunde without her informed consent. The phrase "awaiting original signatures" was particularly revealing. Lauren intended to obtain Adesawa's signature, either through manipulation, claiming the document was something else, or possibly through forgery if manipulation failed. The target filing date suggested urgency. Lauren wanted this completed before they left Nigeria, before Adesawa had time to seek legal advice or understand what was happening. It was sophisticated. It was calculated. It was a fraud. And Adesawa now had proof. She made lunch, white rice, vegetable stew, fried fish, and called them to eat. They sat together at the table, the 3 of them, the air thick with unspoken tensions. Lauren ate quickly, distracted. Tunde ate slowly, his face troubled. Adesawa ate normally, allowing no hint of what she had discovered to show on her face. "This is good," Tunde said. "Thank you." "When do you think you will come visit us in America?" he asked. The question surprised her. "I have not thought about it." "You should. We have a nice house. Guest room. You could stay as long as you want." Adesawa looked at him. "Is this about the assisted living facility?" He hesitated. "No. I just think it would be nice for you to visit." "To visit or to move?" "To visit first. Then maybe you could see how you feel about it." Adesawa set down her fork. "Tunde, I am not moving to America." Lauren spoke up. "But you have not even seen it. How do you know you would not like it?" "Because my home is here." "Home can be wherever you are loved." "I am loved here. But we are there." Adesawa looked at her daughter-in-law. "Lauren, I understand what you are trying to do. And I am telling you, clearly and directly, that I am not interested." Lauren's expression hardened. "You are being stubborn. I am being clear. You are being unreasonable." Adesawa stood. "I am done with this conversation." She carried her plate to the kitchen and left it in the sink. She walked upstairs to her room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of her bed. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear but from suppressed rage. She had been patient. She had been polite. She had tried to maintain peace. But peace built on deception was not peace. It was surrender. And she would not surrender. That night, she could not sleep. At 4 a.m, she rose, dressed in a simple wrapper and blouse, and left the house quietly. The streets were empty, lit by weak streetlights and the occasional glow of a generator. She walked 20 minutes to a bus stop and waited for the first danfo of the day. At 6 o'clock, a bus arrived, packed with early morning commuters, domestic workers heading to Victoria Island, traders going to market, students traveling to school. She stood in the aisle, holding onto the overhead rail as the vehicle jolted over potholes and through traffic. The air smelled of sweat and yesterday's perfume. Around her, people dozed, read newspapers, stared out windows. She disembarked in Yaba at 7:30 and walked 3 blocks to Herbert Macaulay Road. The city was waking up, shops opening metal shutters, vendors arranging their wares, horns blaring in morning traffic. She climbed the stairs of a faded blue building with rusted window grills and entered an office on the 2nd floor. Salami and Associates, barristers and solicitors. The waiting area was small for wooden chairs, a secretary's desk, a ceiling fan turning slowly. The walls were lined with law books, their spines faded, titles in gold lettering, Nigerian land law, property rights and registration, estate planning in West Africa. A young woman looked up from the desk. Good morning. Do you have an appointment? No. But please tell Barrister Salami that Adesawa Obafemi is here. He knew my husband, Emeka. The secretary disappeared through a door. Adesawa sat in one of the chairs, her purse in her lap, her hands folded on top of it. She felt calm now, purposeful. This was the right decision. The secretary returned. He will see you. Adesawa entered a small office. It smelled of old paper, kerosene, and dust. Behind a wooden desk sat Barrister Akin Salami, a man in his early 60s with gray hair cropped close to his skull, wire-rimmed glasses perched on his nose, and a face that had seen too many court battles to be surprised by anything. He stood when she entered. Adesawa. It has been years. Yes. Too long. They shook hands. His grip was firm, professional. He gestured to a chair, and she sat. He poured her a glass of water from a clay pot on a side table and settled back into his seat. What brings you here? He asked. She reached into her purse and removed a folder. Inside were printed copies of the photographs she had taken, the property transfer draft, the scanned title deed, the letter from Roger Feldman. She placed them on his desk. My daughter-in-law is trying to steal my house. Barrister Salami put on his glasses and read each page slowly, his expression unchanging. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and removed his glasses. She is trying a cross-border transfer, he said. Clever. But illegal without your consent. I did not consent. Does your son know? I do not know. But it does not matter. The property is mine. He tapped the papers with one finger. This kind of transfer requires your signature, notarized and authenticated by the Nigerian authorities. She cannot file this without your original deed and your verified signature. She photographed my deed. She has been going through my documents. A photograph is not the same as the original. The registry requires the physical deed for any ownership change. So she cannot file this. Not without your cooperation. But he paused, frowning. She may try to forge your signature. Or she may try to obtain power of attorney by claiming you are mentally incapacitated. Adesawa's joy tightened. I am not incapacitated. I know. But that is a common tactic in property fraud. Claim the owner is suffering from dementia, obtain guardianship, then transfer assets as a supposed act of care. What can I do? 2 things. First, I can prepare an affidavit stating that you have not authorized any transfer and that any such documents are forgeries. We can file it with the registry as a preemptive block. If anyone tries to submit transfer papers, the registry will reject them. And second, we can create a family trust. You transfer the property into a trust with yourself as the guardian and trustee, and you name a beneficiary. Once the trust is registered, no individual transfer is possible. The property becomes protected. Adesawa thought about this. A trust. Yes. It is ironclad. Even if she somehow files fraudulent papers, the registry will reject them because the property is no longer in your individual name. Who should I name as beneficiary? Family members. Someone you trust. My granddaughter. Zainab. She is 12-inch. He wrote the name on a notepad. Perfect. Minors can be beneficiaries. The trust will protect the property until she reaches 18, at which point she can assume full control. How long will this take? I can draft the deed this week. You will need to sign it in front of a notary. Then we file with the registry. Processing takes about a week, but the filing date is what matters. Once it is filed, that date becomes the official record. Anything submitted after that is invalid. Adesawa felt something loosen in her chest. Thank you. One more thing, he leaned forward. Do not let her know what you are doing. Act normal. Let her think she is succeeding. If she suspects you are aware of her plans, she may accelerate or try something else. I understand. Can you do that? Can you pretend nothing has changed? Adesawa thought about 40 years of nursing, of maintaining composure during emergencies, of smiling at patients while monitoring their vital signs, of knowing someone was dying without showing it on her face. Yes, she said. I can do that. He smiled faintly. Your husband would be proud. He would be furious. That too. She stood. He walked her to the door. I will call you when the deed is ready, he said. Thank you, barrister. We will protect your home, Adesawa. I promise you that. She left the office, descended the stairs, and walked back to the bus stop. The sun was higher now, the heat building. The streets were crowded with Lagos in full motion. Traffic, hawkers, music from car radios, the smell of suya grilling on street corners. She boarded a danfo back to Ikeja and stood in the aisle, swaying with the motion of the vehicle. Around her, people talked, argued, laughed. Life continued, indifferent to her private battle. But she felt different now. She felt armed. She arrived home at 11 to find Lauren and Tunde in the living room. Lauren was on her laptop, Tunde was on his phone. They barely looked up when she entered. "Where did you go?" Tunde asked. "The market." "You did not buy anything." She showed him the empty bag. "They did not have what I needed." He nodded, distracted, and returned to his phone. Lauren did not even ask. Adesawa went upstairs, changed into house clothes, and returned to the kitchen. She began preparing lunch, beans and plantain, simple and filling. She moved slowly, methodically, allowing her mind to process what Barrister Salami had told her. A trust. Irrevocable protection. Zainab as beneficiary. It was perfect. Over the next 2 weeks, Adesawa became an actress. She played the role of a frail, trusting mother, someone who was overwhelmed, someone who needed help, someone who was slowly, reluctantly coming around to the idea of change. She asked Lauren to help her organize her medications. Lauren did so eagerly, creating labeled pill boxes, writing out schedules, explaining each medication as if Adesawa had never taken them before. She mentioned that her knees were bothering her, that walking was becoming difficult. Lauren immediately ordered a wheelchair online, expedited shipping, and seemed delighted when it arrived 5 days later. "Just in case," Lauren said, setting it up in the living room. "Thank you," Adesawa replied, letting her voice tremble slightly. She asked Tunde to help her sort through her bank statements. He spent an entire afternoon organizing papers, creating folders, and explaining interest rates. Lauren watched approvingly, making notes in her planner. "This is good," Lauren said. "We need to understand her financial situation if we are going to help her properly." Adesawa said nothing. She let them believe they were making progress. But at night, she was meticulous. She photographed every document Lauren left on the dining table, property assessments, market comparisons, estate planning guides. She recorded snippets of phone conversations through the bedroom window, Lauren's voice carrying in the quiet evening air. She made copies of emails Lauren had printed and thrown away, retrieving them from the recycling bin and smoothing out the creases. She compiled everything into a folder labeled evidence and kept it hidden in a locked drawer in her closet, beneath folded clothes, in a place Lauren would never think to look. On the 5th of May, Barrister Salami called. "The deed is ready. I will come tomorrow. Bring identification. Your national ID card or passport. And bring your original title deed." "I will." She hung up and sat on her bed, thinking. Tomorrow she would sign the papers that would protect her home forever. Tomorrow Lauren's plan would become impossible. But she had to be careful. Lauren could not know. Tunde could not know. She had to maintain the performance. That evening at dinner, she mentioned that she needed to visit a friend in Yaba the next day. "Who?" Tunde asked. "Comfort. She is unwell. I want to check on her. Do you need us to come with you?" No. You stay here. Rest. I will take a bus." Lauren looked up. "Are you sure? We can drive you." "I am sure." "You have work." "All right. Just be careful." "I will." The next morning, Saturday, she woke at 5, dressed carefully, her good wrapper and blouse, matching headscarf, her church shoes, and left the house at 7. Lauren and Tunde were still asleep. She walked to the bus stop, boarded a danfo to Yaba, and arrived at Barrister Salami's office at 8:30. He was already there, the trust deed prepared, 10 pages of legal language typed on official paper and stamped with his firm's seal. He walked her through each clause, the transfer of property from Adesawa Obafemi, individual owner, to the Obafemi Family Trust, legal entity, Adesawa Obafemi designated as guardian and trustee, Zainab Obafemi, age 12. designated as primary beneficiary. Once this is signed and registered, no one can touch this property without Zainab's consent, he explained. Not you, not your son, not his wife. It is absolutely protected. And I can still live here. Of course. As trustee, you have full rights to occupy, maintain, and manage the property. You simply cannot sell or transfer it without the beneficiary's approval. What happens if I die? The trust continues. Zainab becomes full owner at age 18. Until then, a secondary trustee, whom you can name now, manages it on her behalf. My daughter. Zainab's mother. Perfect, he wrote the name. They went to a notary public 3 doors down, a woman in her 50s with a stamp and a register. Adesewa signed each page of the trust deed in front of her. The notary stamped each signature, recorded the transaction in her register, and provided a certification. Registered and notarized, Barrister Salami said. Now we file with the land registry. How long? I will file on Monday. It takes about a week to process, but the filing date is what matters. Once I submit this, the date is locked. May 8th, 2021. Anything she tries to file after that is invalid. Adesewa felt a weight lift. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. When she finds out, there will be trouble. She will hire a lawyer, threaten legal action, maybe even file a complaint with the police claiming you were coerced. Let her try. Just remember, do not engage. Do not argue. Refer everything to me. I will handle it. I will. He made 3 copies of the trust deed, one for her, one for his files, one for the registry. He placed hers in a folder and handed it to her. Keep this safe. I will. She left the office, descended the stairs, and walked back to the bus stop. The morning was bright, the streets crowded. She boarded a Danfo back to Ikeja, standing in the aisle, the folder pressed against her chest. She felt light, almost euphoric. Her home was protected. Her legacy was secured. Lauren could file whatever fraudulent papers she wanted. They would be rejected. The trap was set. Now she just had to wait for it to close. She arrived home at noon. Lauren was on the veranda, phone pressed to her ear, speaking rapidly in English. Adesewa heard fragments as she approached. Yes, I know the timeline is tight. I am working on it, just coming around. I just need a few more days. Lauren saw her and ended the call abruptly. Mom, how's your friend? She is well. Just needed company. Good. We were worried. Adesewa went inside, placed the folder in her locked drawer, and began preparing lunch. Over the next 2 weeks, Lauren became more insistent. She mentioned assisted living again, suggested they visit the land registry together, just to check on the paperwork, and offered to help Adesewa update her will. I do not have a will, Adesewa said. Then we should make one. It is important. Why? For clarity. So everyone knows what you want. Everyone already knows what I want. Lauren smiled tightly. Humor me. But Adesewa did not humor her. She deflected, changed subjects, pleaded fatigue. Each time, she saw Lauren's frustration growing, her patience thinning. And each time, Adesewa felt more secure. Because Lauren's urgency confirmed what Barrister Salami had said, there was a timeline, a deadline by which she wanted this completed. That deadline was approaching, and Lauren was running out of time. On the 12th of June, Lauren made her move. She told Adesewa that she had scheduled an appointment at the Lagos State Land Registry in Alausa for the 15th, 3 days away. What for? Adesewa asked. Just to verify the property records. Make sure everything is in order. Everything is in order. I know. But it is good to double-check. There can be errors in the registry system, duplicate entries, missing stamps, outdated information. I want to make sure your deed is properly filed. Adesewa looked at her daughter-in-law. The lie was smooth, practiced. But Adesewa could see through it now. Lauren was not going to verify, she was going to file. Will I need to come? Adesewa asked. Not necessarily. I can handle it. But if you want to come for peace of mind, you are welcome to. Adesewa hesitated, as if considering. Then she said, I am tired lately. My knees hurt. You go. I trust you. Lauren's face brightened. Really? Yes. You have been helping so much. I am grateful. Lauren reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Thank you, Mom. I promise we are doing this for your own good. Adesua smiled. I know. That night, she called Barrister Salami from her bedroom, door closed, voice low. She is going to the registry on the 15th. She thinks she is filing her fraudulent papers. Good. Let her go. The registry will reject them. You are sure? I am sure. The trust is registered. Dated 8th May. Her papers, even if she files them, will be dated 15th June or later. The registry will see the prior registration and reject hers. What if she argues? She can argue all she wants. The law is clear, first registration wins. And we filed first. Should I go? No. Stay home. Let her discover the truth on her own. It will be more effective that way. All right. And Adesua. Yes. Be prepared. When she comes back, she will be angry. Very angry. Do not engage. Do not explain. Just stay calm and refer her to me. I will. She hung up and sat on the edge of her bed. 3 days. In 3 days, this would be over. The morning of the 15th was bright and hot. Adesua woke early, as always, and made tea. She heard Lauren moving around upstairs, shower running, drawers opening, footsteps quick and purposeful. Lauren came downstairs dressed in a navy suit, her hair pulled back, a leather folder under her arm. She looked professional, confident. You are sure you do not want to come? She asked. I am sure. I will rest. All right. I will be back in a few hours. She kissed Tunde goodbye, he was still working remotely from the guest room, and left. Adesua watched through the window as Lauren climbed into a taxi and disappeared into traffic. Then she made breakfast, ate slowly, and waited. At the registry in Alausa, Lauren approached the filing clerk with her folder. She placed the documents on the counter, the property transfer draft, the scanned title deed, the letter from Roger Feldman. I need to file a property transfer, she said. The clerk, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, took the documents and began examining them. He typed the parcel number into the computer system and frowned. There is a problem, he said. Lauren's smile faltered. What problem? This parcel is already registered under a family trust. Filed 8th May, 2021. Lauren's face went pale. That is impossible. The clerk turned the monitor toward her. Here. The Obafemi Family Trust. Guardian, Adesua Obafemi. Beneficiary, Zainab Obafemi. No individual transfers permitted without beneficiary consent. But I have the deed. This is a photocopy. We require original documents for any transfer. I have permission from the owner. Do you have a notarized signature from the trust guardian? Lauren opened her folder, shuffled through papers. She is about to sign. We are in the process. Then you cannot file until the process is complete. But trust, there must be a mistake. She did not tell me about any trust. The clerk shrugged. The trust is legally binding. Your documents cannot be processed. At that moment, Barrister Ikeja Salami appeared at the counter. He was dressed in a dark suit, carrying a briefcase. He placed a folder on the counter next to Lauren's. Good morning, he said to the clerk. I represent the Obafemi Family Trust. These documents were filed fraudulently, without the guardian's knowledge or consent. We request a formal rejection on record. The clerk stamped a form. Rejected. Reason: prior trust registration, lack of original documents, no authorized signature. Lauren turned to Barrister Salami. Who are you? I am Barrister Ikeja Salami. And you, Mrs. Peterson Obafemi, have attempted to commit property fraud. This is insane. That house belongs to my husband's family. It belongs to a legally registered trust. She signed documents. She agreed to transfer ownership. Show me her notarized signature. Lauren opened her mouth, then closed it. Her face flushed. This is not over. Actually, it is. Barrister Salami picked up his folder. I suggest you withdraw your fraudulent filing, return to America, and consider yourself fortunate that we are not pressing criminal charges. Lauren stared at him, her hands trembling. Then she gathered her papers, turned, and walked out of the building. Outside, She stood in the parking lot, breathing hard, her mind racing. She pulled out her phone and called Roger Feldman in Maryland. Roger, we have a problem. What happened? There is a trust. She filed a family trust. My papers were rejected. There was a pause. When was the trust filed? May 8th. Damn it. That is before we even finalized the draft. What do we do? Nothing. If the trust is registered, you cannot override it. The property is locked. But she did not tell me. She lied. She did not lie. She protected her assets. Which is legal. So that is it? We just lost. You never had it to lose. It was never your property. Lauren hung up. She stood in the parking lot, the heat pressing down on her, and felt something she had not felt in years, complete, humiliating failure. She took a taxi back to Ikeja. The ride was slow, traffic thick, horns blaring. She stared out the window, her mind spinning through scenarios, explanations, and next steps. But every path led to the same conclusion. She had been outmaneuvered. She arrived home at 2 in the afternoon. Adesuwa was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. The smell of pepper and fish filled the air. Lauren stood in the doorway, her suit wrinkled, her face pale. Did you do something? She asked. Adesuwa continued stirring. I did many things today. Which one do you mean? The trust. Did you file a family trust? Yes. When? May 8th. Lauren's voice rose. Why did you not tell me? You did not ask. I asked if you were thinking about the future. I asked if you wanted help. Adesuwa set down the spoon and turned to face her. You asked if I wanted to give you my house. I said no. So I made sure you could not take it. I was not taking it. I was organizing it. You were stealing it. That is not true. Adesuwa walked to the dining table, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder. She placed it on the table. These are copies of the documents you printed. The property transfer draft. The scan deed. The letter from your Maryland lawyer. You were planning to file them without my knowledge. That is theft. Lauren stared at the folder. You went through my things. You went through mine. I was trying to help. You were trying to steal. Lauren's face crumpled. You do not understand. We were trying to protect you. By taking my home. By making sure it stayed in the family. It is in the family. My granddaughter owns it now. Your granddaughter is 12. Yes. And she will be 18 one day. And then it will be hers. Not yours. Lauren stood there, silent, her hands clenched. Then she turned and went upstairs. Adesuwa heard her talking to Tunde, her voice shrill, his voice low and confused. The conversation lasted 30 minutes, then silence. That evening, Tunde came downstairs. His face was pale. Mama, what happened? Your wife tried to steal my house. I stopped her. She said she was helping. By forging documents? By planning to file transfer papers without my permission. She said you agreed. I did not agree. I did not even know until I found the papers she printed. Tunde sat down heavily. Why did you not tell me? Would you have believed me? He did not answer. Adesuwa sat across from him. Tunde, I love you. But your wife tried to take my home. I could not let that happen. She said the trust means I will never inherit. That is not true. When I die, the trust passes to Zainab. When she turns 18, she can decide what to do with it. She can keep it, sell it, transfer it to you. But it is her choice, not Lauren's. Why Zainab? Why not me? Adesuwa looked at her son. Because I trust her not to steal it. The words hung in the air, sharp and final. Tunde looked away. I did not know, he said quietly. Did you sign anything? No. Did you know she was planning this? I knew she was looking into estate planning. I did not know the details. So you chose not to know. He did not respond. Adesuwa stood. You are my son. You will always be my son. But this is my house. And it will stay mine until I decide otherwise. She went to the kitchen and resumed cooking. Tunde sat at the table for a long time, then went upstairs. That night, Adesuwa heard them arguing. Raised voices, accusations, defenses. The argument lasted for hours. She lay in her bed, listening, feeling no satisfaction, only sadness. This was not how she had imagined her son's visit, ending in betrayal, in broken trust, in a family divided. But she had done what was necessary, and she would not apologize for protecting what was hers. The next morning, Lauren came downstairs with her suitcases. Her face was composed, but her eyes were red. "We are leaving," she said. "When?" Adesawa asked. "Today. I changed our flights." "I see." Tunde carried the bags to the gate. A taxi arrived. He loaded the luggage into the trunk. Lauren stood in the doorway, looking at Adesawa. "You do not understand what you have done." "I understand perfectly. We were trying to help you. We were trying to make sure you were secure." "I am secure. I have a home, a trust, and a clear conscience." Lauren's jaw tightened. "You will regret this. When you are old and alone and need help, you will remember this day. I will remember it as the day I protected my home from someone who pretended to care." Lauren turned and walked to the taxi. Tunde hesitated at the gate. He looked at his mother, his expression pained. "Mama, I am sorry." "For what?" "For not asking. For not protecting you." She walked to him and took his face in her hands. "Tunde, you are my son. I love you. But you let her make decisions about my life without consulting me. You chose her comfort over my autonomy. That is what you should be sorry for." His eyes filled with tears. "I do not know how to fix this. You do not fix it. You learn from it." She hugged him. He held her tightly, his shoulders shaking slightly. Then he pulled away, got into the taxi, and the vehicle drove off. Adesawa stood at the gate and watched until it disappeared. The street was noisy, hawkers calling out their wares, children playing football, motorcycles weaving through traffic. The smell of roasted corn drifted from a nearby vendor. Life continued, indifferent to her private victory. She turned and walked back into her house. The silence was profound. She spent the rest of the day cleaning. She stripped the guest room bed, washed the sheets, scrubbed the bathroom. She opened all the windows and let the breeze move through the rooms, clearing out the stale air, the lingering tension. She mopped the floors, dusted the furniture, wiped down the kitchen counters. By evening, the house felt like hers again. She cooked a simple dinner, beans and plantain, and ate alone at the table. The radio played old highlife music, the sound familiar and comforting. She hummed along, letting the music fill the empty spaces. That night, she slept deeply for the first time in weeks. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived via international courier. It was from Feldman and Associates, the law firm in Maryland. The letter was addressed to Adesawa Obafemi, typed on official letterhead, signed by Roger Feldman. Adesawa read it carefully. The letter stated that Lauren Peterson Obafemi was seeking reconciliation and restitution regarding the property dispute in Lagos, Nigeria. It claimed that Mrs. Obafemi had verbally agreed to transfer ownership to her son and daughter-in-law, but had then reneged on that agreement, causing emotional distress and financial loss. It requested that Adesawa reconsider the trust arrangement and agree to a mediated settlement that would allow for joint ownership of the property, with Mrs. Obafemi retaining lifetime residency rights. The letter suggested international mediation, either in Nigeria or the United States, and warned that failure to respond could result in litigation. Adesawa read the letter twice, then called Barrister Salami. "They sent a lawyer's letter," she said. "What does it say?" She read it aloud. He chuckled. "They are bluffing. They have no case. A verbal agreement is unenforceable for property transfers, especially across international borders. And even if they could prove it, which they cannot, the trust is already registered. It supersedes any prior verbal agreements. What should I do?" "Nothing. I will respond." "What will you say?" "The truth. That the trust is legally established, that no fraud occurred, that any further contact will be considered harassment and referred to Nigerian law enforcement." "Will that stop them?" "Yes, because they know they have no legal standing. This letter is just posturing, hoping you will be intimidated and agree to negotiate. We are not negotiating." 3 days later, Barrister Salami sent his response. It was brief, 2 paragraphs on official letterhead. "Dear Mr. Feldman, we represent the Obafemi Family Trust and Mrs. Adesawa Obafemi, guardian and trustee. Your letter dated 24th June 2021 has been received and reviewed. The Obafemi Family Trust was legally established and registered with the Lagos State Land Registry on 8 May 2021, in full compliance with Nigerian law. Your client, Mrs. Lauren Peterson Obafemi, attempted to file fraudulent property transfer documents on 15 June 2021 without the knowledge or consent of the property owner. These documents were rejected by the registry due to prior trust registration. No verbal agreement for property transfer ever existed. Any further contact regarding this matter will be considered harassment and reported to the appropriate Nigerian and U.S. authorities. The trust is irrevocable. No negotiation, mediation, or settlement is applicable. This matter is closed. He attached copies of the trust deed, the registry filing receipt, and photographs of the fraudulent documents Lauren had attempted to file. After that, there was silence. Adesuwa did not hear from Lauren again. Tunde called once, in late July. His voice was quiet, tired. "Mama, how are you?" "I am well." "Good." There was a long pause, the sound of distance compressed into static. "Mama, I am sorry." "I know. Can I visit again someday?" "Yes, but come alone." "I understand." They spoke for a few more minutes about inconsequential things, the weather in Maryland, the rainy season in Lagos, Zainab's progress in school. Then he said goodbye. Adesuwa hung up and sat with the phone in her hand, feeling the weight of what had been lost. She had protected her home. But she had lost something else: trust, closeness, the easy affection that had once defined her relationship with her son. It was the price of victory. And she had paid it willingly. By September, life had returned to its rhythms. The rains came, heavy and cleansing, washing the dust from the streets, filling the gutters, turning the garden green. Adesuwa resumed her routines: morning tea, market visits, church on Sundays. The neighbors stopped asking about Tunde's visit. The incident faded into neighborhood memory, another story to be briefly mentioned and then forgotten. But Adesuwa did not forget. She thought about Lauren often, about what had driven her: greed, yes, but also something else. Control. The belief that she could manage other people's lives better than they could manage themselves. The assumption that wealth and modernity gave her authority over tradition and autonomy. It was a colonial mindset, repackaged for the 21st century. And Adesuwa had resisted it the way her ancestors had resisted, not with violence, but with knowledge. Not with confrontation, but with strategy. Not with anger, but with the quiet application of law and legitimacy. She had won because she understood that power was not about force. It was about knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. When to trust and when to verify. When to accommodate and when to resist. It was a lesson she wished she could teach Lauren. But some people only learn through loss. In November, the harmattan returned, bringing cool mornings and dusty winds. Adesuwa sat on the veranda one afternoon, wrapped in a shawl, drinking tea. The guava tree had borne fruit again, the branches heavy with round green orbs. Children from the compound came to ask for some, and she filled their hands, watching them run off laughing. The generator hummed softly. The call to prayer rose from the mosque, weaving through the neighborhood. A woman passed by, balancing a basin of oranges on her head, calling out her prices in Yoruba. Adesuwa thought about writing to Zainab, about telling her the story of what had happened, about explaining why the house now belonged to her. But Zainab was only 12, still a child, still innocent of the complications of property and inheritance and family betrayal. There would be time for that later. For now, it was enough that the house was protected. She rose from her chair and went inside. She walked through the living room, the kitchen, the hallway, running her hand along the walls. These walls had sheltered her for 38 years. They had witnessed her joys and sorrows, her losses and victories. They had absorbed the sounds of her life: Tunde's childhood laughter, Emeka's evening prayers, her own quiet tears in the years after his death. This was not just property. It was memory made solid. And she had defended it. Not with violence. Not with anger. But with the quiet, relentless certainty of a woman who knew her worth and refused to be displaced. That evening, she sat at the dining table and wrote a letter to her granddaughter. My dear Zainab, I hope this letter finds you well and growing strong. Your mother tells me you are doing well in school, that you are reading many books and asking many questions. I am proud of you. I am writing to tell you something important, something you should know even though you are young. The house where I live, the house where your father grew up, is now yours. Not today, not tomorrow, but one day when you are older. I have placed it in a trust with your name on it so that no one can take it from you, so that it will always be part of your inheritance. This house is more than bricks and cement. It is the place where your grandfather planted the guava tree, where your father learned to walk, where we gathered for celebrations and mourned our losses. It is the place where I learned to be strong, to be patient, to be wise. When people forget where they come from, they also forget who they are. Do not forget, my child. This house is yours because you are part of a long line of people who believed that home was not something you bought or sold, but something you protected and passed on. I am sending you a small gift with this letter. It is a bracelet your grandfather gave me on our wedding anniversary in 1986. The beads are red, the clasp is gold. It is old, but it is precious. Wear it and remember that you are loved, that you are protected, that you belong to something greater than yourself. When you are older, I will tell you the full story of how this house became yours, of the people who tried to take it, of how I defended it. For now, know this: your inheritance is secure. Your future is protected. Your home is waiting for you. May God bless you always, my beautiful child. With all my love, your grandmother, Adesawa. She folded the letter and placed it in an envelope. She retrieved the red bead bracelet from her jewelry box, the one Emeka had given her 35 years ago, the one she had worn on special occasions, the one that had survived decades and still gleamed like new. She wrapped it carefully in tissue paper and placed it in the envelope. The next morning, she took the letter to the post office. The clerk weighed it, stamped it, and calculated the postage to Abuja. "It will arrive in 3 days," he said. "Thank you." She paid, took the receipt, and folded it carefully. She would place it in her Bible, alongside the land registry receipt, alongside the trust deed, alongside all the other documents that marked the important moments of her life. She walked home slowly, enjoying the morning coolness, the sounds of the neighborhood waking up. She stopped at the market and bought tomatoes, peppers, onions. She greeted the vendors by name, asked about their families, bargained good-naturedly over prices. This was her life. This was her community. This was her home. And no one, no matter how well-intentioned, no matter how educated, no matter how modern, would take it from her. By December, the harmattan was in full force. The mornings were cold, the air thick with dust. Adesawa woke early, wrapped herself in a shawl, and made tea. She sat on the veranda and watched the sunrise pale and distant behind the haze, a disk of white light slowly warming the world. Her phone rang. It was her daughter. "Mama, Zainab received your letter." "Good," she cried. She said it is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given her. Adesawa felt her throat tighten. "Tell her I love her. She wants to visit you during the Christmas holiday. Can she come?" "Yes." "Please send her." "I will." "Mama?" "Yes." "What happened with Tunde?" "He has not told me everything, but I know something went wrong." Adesawa paused. "His wife tried to take my house. I stopped her." There was silence on the line. Then her daughter said, "Are you all right?" "I am fine." "And Tunde? He is learning." "That is all you will say?" "That is all that needs to be said." They spoke for a few more minutes, then hung up. Adesawa finished her tea and went inside to begin her day. On the 23rd of December, Zainab arrived. Adesawa went to the bus station to meet her, standing among the crowd of people waiting for arrivals. When the bus from Abuja pulled in, Zainab was one of the first to descend, tall for her age, with her grandfather's eyes and her mother's smile, wearing the red bead bracelet on her wrist. "Grandma," she called, running forward. Adesawa caught her in a tight embrace, inhaling the smell of shea butter and youth. "Welcome home, my child." They took a taxi back to Ikeja. Zainab chattered the whole way about school, about her friends, about the books she was reading. She asked about the guava tree, about whether it still bore fruit, about whether she could climb it. "It is very old now," Adesawa said. But yes, you can climb it. When they arrived at the house, Zainab stood in the compound and looked around, at the faded paint, at the guava tree spreading its branches, at the neighbors' children playing in the street. It is just like you described, she said. Is that good or bad? Good. It is perfect. They spent the week together. Adesua showed her the garden, taught her how to make pepper soup, told her stories about her grandfather. They walked through the neighborhood, visited the market, sat on the veranda in the evenings. Zainab asked questions about everything, about nothing, about life and death and what it meant to own land. One afternoon, as they sat under the guava tree, Zainab said, "Grandma, why is the house in a trust?" Adesua had been waiting for this question. Because someone tried to take it. And I wanted to make sure it stayed with the family. Who tried to take it? Someone who thought they had the right. But they did not. Did you fight them? Not with my fists. With paperwork. Zainab smiled. Paperwork is more powerful than fists. Sometimes. When you know how to use it. Will you teach me? One day. When you are older. How old? 18. That is 6 years from now. I know. And then all of this will be yours. Zainab looked around, at the house, at the tree, at the street beyond the gate. I will take care of it, she said seriously. I promise. I know you will. On Zainab's last day, they sat on the veranda together, watching the sunset. The sky was streaked with orange and purple, the air cooling as evening approached. Grandma, Zainab said, do you ever get lonely? Sometimes. But you're not scared. Of what? Of being alone. Adesua thought about this. No. Alone is different from lonely. Alone means no one else is here. Lonely means you miss someone. I am alone, but I am not lonely. Why not? Because I am full. Full of memories, full of purpose, full of peace. Zainab leaned her head on Adesua's shoulder. I think you are the strongest person I know. Adesua smiled. Strength is not about never bending. It is about knowing when to bend and when to stand firm. Did you stand firm when someone tried to take the house? Yes. Good. They sat in silence as the sun disappeared and the streetlights flickered on. The call to prayer echoed from the mosque. A generator started somewhere down the street, its hum joining the chorus of evening sounds. When darkness fell, they went inside. Adesua made dinner, jollof rice and chicken, and they ate together, talking and laughing. Later, Adesua tucked Zainab into the guest room bed, the same bed Lauren had slept in, now stripped and remade with fresh sheets. Good night, Grandma, Zainab said. Good night, my child. Adesua stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her granddaughter's breathing slow, watching her slip into sleep. Then she turned off the light and went to her own room. She sat on the edge of her bed and looked around, at the simple furniture, at the photographs on the wall, at the metal box under the bed that held all her important documents. This room had seen her joys and her sorrows, her victories and her defeats. It had witnessed her transformation from wife to widow, from mother to guardian, from passive recipient to active defender. And it would witness the rest of her story, however many years remained. She knelt beside the bed, folded her hands, and prayed. Not for vindication, but for grace. Not for triumph, but for peace. Not for recognition, but for rest. When she finished, she climbed into bed and turned off the light. The room was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlight through the curtains. She thought about Lauren one last time, wondering where she was, what she was doing, whether she had learned anything. She thought about Tunde, hoping he would find his way back, hoping he would one day understand what had happened and why. But these thoughts did not linger. They passed like clouds, leaving no shadow. She thought instead about the guava tree, about how it would bloom again in the spring, about how Zainab would return to pick its fruit. She thought about the house, about how it would stand long after she was gone, sheltering generations to come. She thought about legacy, about how it was built not through wealth or status, but through quiet decisions made in moments of crisis. She had protected her home. She had secured her granddaughter's future. She had stood firm when others would have been swept away. And that, she realized, was enough. She closed her eyes and slept. The house settled into darkness. The generator hummed outside, steady and reliable. The guava tree stood in the garden, its branches heavy with fruit. The street was quiet except for the occasional sound of a passing car, a dog barking, a distant radio playing old music. And in a metal box under the bed, documents rested: a land registry receipt from 1984, a trust deed from 2021, a letter from a granddaughter, evidence of a life lived, a home defended, a legacy secured. Not with violence, not with anger, but with the quiet authority of a woman who knew, beyond any doubt, that what was hers would remain hers. And that was justice enough. Every story here will stir your soul. Welcome to Spice and Sugar, your daily escape into real emotions, bold lives, and unforgettable lessons. Here, it's all about love, loss, laughter, and the quiet strength that carries us through. I share stories that make you feel, that remind you you're not alone, that every bitter moment can lead to something sweet. If you want to laugh, cry, and see life through stories that heal and inspire, subscribe and stay a while.